In this video, we're talking about the ways in which it is different to move to Austin, Texas from just a year ago all the way to now, and ultimately whether or not it is the right time for you. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, this is Frank with the Living in Austin group at eXp Realty. On this channel, we put out new content about living in Austin, Texas, the good and the bad, so consider subscribing if you haven't already, and ring that little bell to get notified anytime we put out a new video. We also love the reach outs we've been getting now all the time from people just like you in need of our help when relocating to the greater Austin area. So keep them coming, don't hesitate. Whether you're 9 days away or 90, reach out to our team, whether you shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call any day of the week, any time of day. So yes, in this video, we are talking about the ways in which Austin, Texas has changed from just a year ago to now in the context of relocating here. And we might as well get the most obvious difference out of the way first, and that would be the dreaded subject of interest rates. Interest rates right now are sky high. It has absolutely changed the market, and it has affected the power of the sellers that they absolutely had just 1 year ago. Fewer people are coming because more people are feeling scared, and rightfully so. Now, with the ways things are changing throughout the country, we are expecting interest rates to begin dropping once again. However, I couldn't blame you, nobody could blame you for having some apprehension, assuming you're not wanting to go the route of refinancing when they drop at a later point. So while interest rates are bad news for buyers, it did change the market in favor of buyers, so all hope is not lost. Which leads us to the next point: homes are sitting. And this is something a year ago, yes, but even 4, 5, 6 months ago, we would not have seen on the horizon. It would not be in the foreseeable future. Not too long ago, it was absolutely the case that when a home was put on the market, within hours of it going live, there were multiple offers, bidding situations, and that home would sell within a day or two. Even in the past year, I helped my mama sell her house, which by no means was a lavish, nice house. It was a very modest, normal people house, and even still, it sold well over asking price in absolutely no time. We barely even had to do an open house. And so now you're seeing homes, much nicer homes than that, by the way, sitting and sitting and sitting, and then they have to do price reductions, and there's a bit of a lull in the market, which absolutely, if you are on the buying side of the equation, is good news. It's bad news, if we're being honest, for the sellers right now. Which, yet again, naturally allows us to segue to our next subject, which is having more time. Yes, it is kind of stating the obvious. If homes are sitting, the buyers have more time. But keep in mind the state of things a year ago, or even less than a year ago. If you were wanting to buy a home in the greater Austin area, or in Texas rather, not just exclusive to Austin, however, Austin is absolutely the hottest. If you were coming out of state, which this absolutely especially pertains to, you would be coming on a trip. You'd have maybe a few days. You're already looking online wherever you live outside of Texas, and you have your eyes on a home, and you don't know if it's your dream home. You go and you check it out, and all of a sudden you're rushed because there's 15 other people in line to see the house and make offers themselves. And that was the reality of buying a house not too long ago. And so now it's a beautiful thing to not have to decide in 24, 48 hours, or even less than that, if this is worth your money, if this is worth the commitment, if this is your forever home. A lot of decisions were rushed back in the day. And because of that, we are again naturally led to our next point, which is the sweetest of them all: buyer power. A year ago today, 6 months ago today, 9 months ago today, there was no buyer power. The way that our team would help the buyers get their offers accepted was basically in the form of begging, going to bat on the buyer's behalf, negotiating with the sellers, having our clients write letters to the sellers, trying to convince them to accept their offers, because at that time, the way to get an offer accepted in most cases was to waive your rights to an appraisal, was to waive the inspection, to surrender so many rights, and basically going into the purchase blind, assuming that you weren't going up against a cash buyer who was already waiving all of that, in addition to not even financing. So the poetic justice, the beautiful irony is that now it has absolutely flipped because of those damn interest rates that we all hate. Now sellers are getting nervous, and now buyers have the power, because now that homes are sitting, it kind of lights this fire under the seller's butt. And a lot of them still have the arrogance of what the market was 6, 9, 12 months ago. And so they price the house most often at a price that they're thinking, oh, we can get away with this. No, you can't. Nowadays, if you don't price a home for the exact worth that it has on the market, if you're going over that because you think it's worth more and it'll sell regardless, even though it's worth less than this on the actual market, that is bad news. It sits and it sits and it sits. And then you are doing price reductions. And when you're doing price reductions, that opens the door for negotiations. And not just from people selling their already owned home. If we're talking about new build construction, there was a time not too long ago that these builders at these new communities, these new neighborhoods, they could jack up the prices on their houses month to month, 50 grand every month, higher and higher, because people were buying them up anyway. It's almost like they had this entitlement of, well, we can basically sell these for whatever we want because the demand is so hot. It's an amazing gig. Now things have flipped for that as well. Now these builders, these new communities, these neighborhoods are offering price cuts. They're offering buyer incentives. A lot of these negotiations, whether it's a builder or a seller with their own house, are offering to buy down the interest rates. They're offering to negotiate and pay for closing costs. A lot of things now, aside from the interest rates, which I acknowledge are really bad, it's essentially a total buyer's market now because buyers are being basically begged, the irony, to buy the house. And a year ago, that was not even conceivable. So yes, things are changing in the country. Yes, there are highs and lows and the market has been in a bit of a lull, absolutely. But if you can look beneath the surface of feeling reluctant, you find that if you are in position to buy, you've been wanting to buy, at least as far as the past 12, 9, 6, 3 months, it has never been more advantageous to be a buyer in this market. Now, real quickly, before moving on, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. If we've been providing any value for you, consider clicking the like button as it helps our channel grow. Remember to subscribe, and lastly, share our content with anybody you know who's wanting to learn more about living in Austin, Texas. All right, up next, if we are moving on from talk of the market and now focusing more specifically on how not just the city of Austin, but the greater Austin area has changed year to date, I'd be remiss if I did not start with the subject of traffic. And I don't mean to be Captain Obvious. I know what is there to say about traffic aside from the fact that it sucks. But let me be a bit more specific with you so that you know what you're getting into. Even as recently as, say, 2017, is when I started making mental note of it. That is when the traffic in the greater Austin area, not just the city, started to get worse. Fast forward to when things began to really change and things really started popping. That would be around the time of COVID and the pandemic. So prior to that, Austin and the greater Austin area was already a hot spot for relocation, if not among the top in the entire country, year after year after year. People move here all the time. And what happened during the pandemic is all of a sudden, not just in Texas or in Austin, but in the country, everybody started relocating because so many people could now work from home, and a matter of where they are became less significant, so people would pack up and move. And then Austin became what was already such a hot spot for relocation. It became an even hotter spot for relocation where people really started flocking here. And that is when we saw the market become what it was, with sellers having all the power because the demand was it was bottomless, it was endless. So what does that mean? There are more people here than ever before, and let me remind you, Austin, Texas and the greater Austin area is not as large as you think. It is not a metropolis like Dallas or Houston, nor is it even as large as San Antonio. Austin, Texas, first and foremost, was once just a small college town that evolved, and it grew in population quicker than its infrastructure was prepared to deal with. And so what that gives you is construction. And when you have construction, it makes traffic worse. And because traffic is worse, they try to fix that with construction. It creates this loop, and then more and more people are coming here, and it just becomes an absolute nightmare. And in addition to that, this is not specific to the city. You are starting to see traffic increase in places that it didn't used to. In suburbia, I mean, even if you're looking at Round Rock, Texas, or Cedar Park, Texas, or Leander, Texas, for example, these are suburbs 20 to 40 minutes removed from the city, Georgetown, Texas included, that used to be open roads. It's nice and peaceful. It's suburbia. You know, you're away from the mess of the city. Now Austin is filling up so much because of its relatively small size that even in the heart of Cedar Park, Texas, you are getting horrific rush hour roads that used to be open at 5 or 6 p.m. are backed all the way up. Other freeways, even in North Austin, that used to get rush hour at maybe 4:30 or 5, Now you're starting to see rush hour really start and come to a halt as early as 2 or 3 in the friggin' afternoon. In addition to that, moving right along, I'd be remiss if I did not mention the subject of crime. And don't get me wrong, many people would argue that in places like San Antonio or Houston, it is going to be a bit more crime than Austin, Texas. Having said that, it is still worth mentioning if you are going to be dabbling in Austin, Texas, if you're going to be working downtown, say with corporate, or you're going to be spending a lot of time there socially, or whatever the reason may be, the crime in the city of Austin, Texas has not just increased, which is natural and normal. You'll see fluctuations of crime statistics wherever you are in the country, but Austin specifically has more than just subtly increased. It has dramatically increased regarding shootings, murder, obviously, aggravated assaults, burglaries. All of these things are much higher than they used to be, and they're much higher at a rapidly alarming pace. So that is something worth mentioning. In addition to that, somewhat on the same note, you are seeing the subject of homelessness come up a lot more. So much so that it became relatively normal dialogue among local Austinites of what are we going to do about this situation that is getting out of control regarding the tents that you're seeing everywhere, and panhandlers as well. I mean, I briefly lived in Los Angeles once upon a time, and there was a bit of a culture shock with people, always at the stop signs or always at red lights or wanting to wipe your windshield when you're getting gas. And no, Austin, Texas is not to that extreme yet, but even in safe, quiet suburbia, you're getting panhandlers in places you did not used to see panhandlers. And so things in Austin, Texas really are changing, and they're changing very quickly. I guess the most obvious reason is because of how many people are relocating here all the time, and it's dramatically shifting the culture, as opposed to perhaps other places in Texas that are growing, yes, but perhaps not quite as rapidly as Austin. It's something to keep in mind. Now, lastly, on the subject of Austin, Texas specifically, not talking about the market, but the ways in which just the overall Austin area has changed year to date, let's talk about development. And what I'm getting at is, most people, especially our clients, a majority of our clients that we've helped close on homes, most people don't actually want to move to Austin, Texas proper, the city limits, whether it be because of the population, because of the rising crime, or because of the absurd lack of affordability that you're finding close to the city. Most people have their sights set on places within 15 to 30 to 45 minutes of the city, which would be Kyle, Buda, Manor, Hutto, Georgetown, Leander, Round Rock, so on and so forth. And a lot of these places, yes, were already developed, like Cedar Park, for example, would have peaked, I'd say, around 2010. Pflugerville peaked probably more in the 90s, the early 2000s. Round Rock has already peaked, but it keeps peaking because Round Rock is absolutely massive, so on and so forth. But what we're seeing now is places that used to be hidden gems, places that used to be under the radar, like Manor, Texas, like Hutto, Texas, like Liberty Hill, Texas. Those places are now filling up, the developments are happening quick, and you're starting to see these big companies from other states relocating here themselves. And so, for example, just outside of Manor or Bastrop in southeast Austin, Texas, you have the Tesla factory, which is absolutely gigantic. And what does that mean? These quiet little places that were flying under the radar, that were happily flying under the radar, don't bring your new people here, we like it how it is. These places are changing because people who need to work, for example, at Tesla are going to be filling up Bastrop, which means that Bastrop is going to have a lot more construction and traffic and influx of population and people moving there. In addition to that, we have the subject of the, I believe it's $4 billion Samsung plant that's going in Taylor, Texas. And I'm sure many of you watching this are like, Taylor, Texas? You might have heard of Round Rock, you might have heard of the Westlake Hills, you might have heard of even Georgetown, if we're getting a bit nuanced and niche with our suburbs of Austin. But even a place like Taylor, which if you go to Taylor, it is nothing but green and fields and just very underdeveloped and maybe a few new neighborhoods. Now Taylor's about to explode. Taylor's about to pop because of all the people who are going to relocate there for the Samsung jobs. So what I'm getting at is if you are aiming to relocate here and you have your sights set on places outside of the city of Austin, as most of our clients have done as well, just take it to heart and understand that a lot of these places are also changing. Granted, not all of them are going to be that way, but you want to keep an eye out for places that might still be rural, that might still be a bit under the radar, that will no longer be that way in very soon, years to come, right? Your Hutto is getting a co-op district shopping center, which is comparable to the Domain. Leander is getting Northline, which is comparable to the Domain. They're getting their own lagoon. As mentioned, the factories near Bastrop and Taylor. So some of you might be okay with that. Some of you might not mind, especially if you're thinking about appreciation or if you're an investor and you're thinking about return on your dollar. Yes, these places are going to get much more expensive. But if you're just coming here with your family, if you're just needing a change, just keep in mind some places might not be how they are right now in years to come. And that could be a great thing for you, or it might not be what you're looking for and you might feel trapped in this bubble of growth. So if nothing else, just peace of mind. I don't mean to dissuade or discourage you, but you want to be mindful of such things, especially when you're coming out of state and you don't even know it intimately. You're trying to figure out your left from your right. You don't want to get a house in a place that is soon to change. And that's the truth about Austin, Texas. Even if it's not just the city, the rest of the greater Austin area is evolving quite quickly. So there you have it. The market is changing, and Austin itself, just in terms of living here, is changing too. So hopefully in this video, we've been able to help you arrive at your own conclusion as to whether or not it is the right time for you to come here. And if it is, again, that is what we are here for, helping people just like you relocate to the greater Austin area, making that move as smooth as possible and finding that perfect spot. But again, the only way we can do that is by you reaching out to us. So don't hesitate, whether you're 9 days away or 90, reach out to our team, whether you shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call any day of the week, any time of day. It's what we love to do. We've got your back when moving to Austin, Texas. As mentioned on this channel, we put out new content about living in Austin, Texas, the good and in some cases the bad. So remember to subscribe if you haven't already and ring that little bell to get notified anytime we put out a new video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Click the like button if we've been providing any value for you. Share it with anybody you know. And until the next one, you guys, my name is Frank. This is Living in Austin, Texas, and we will absolutely catch you later.